Kris, with how your team played so well, like you've been a good defensive team for a while, but the last like 7 games, you've had 4 or 5 really dominant performances of limiting high danger chances. What have you seen? What's taken it from consistent to dominant lately?
Oh, probably the biggest one would be the adjustments on the penalty kill. I think Mark did a great job of adjusting, making little changes. I don't think we did very much, but just emphasized certain points. Players really bought in and executed those well. So I think the chances that we made the chance that we gave up on the penalty kill, I think that had a lot to do with it. Then after that, I don't know, probably a lot of block shots but also when you're getting the saves, you forget about the mistakes. And we did make some mistakes, and probably fewer than we did before, but, I think our goaltending covered those up. Obviously with the back-to-back shutouts, and even picks before he came out of the series.
Miro Heiskanen's played 3 games now for Dallas. The third one looked like it was his best, just in minutes played and everything. How does he change their attack from the back end?
Well, between him and Harley, those are 2 are very dangerous getting involved in the play. They're tremendous skaters, so if they get a step on our forwards coming out of the zone, then they're getting involved, and then that becomes dangerous. And we just played the team with the most goals off the rush with Vegas in the regular season, and then Dallas is number 2. And Dallas was number 1 last year. So obviously it's a bit of their identity and something that they're very good at. And, if we're turning over pucks and we're slow in the back check and our gaps are soft, we're going to get exposed there. So that's really important. And that attack is not just the forwards. It's a lot of the defensemen joining up in the rush. And they'll all do it. But Heiskanen and Harley are definitely the most dangerous.
Kris, what did you think of Matthias out on the ice today, first practice since his injury?
I'm good. Yeah, I watched him yesterday, watched him today. I think it's going well, and, I think his mobility's pretty good considering how much time he's had off and the type of injury that he had. So I think we're off to a good start.
Mikko Rantanen is one of the more talented players in the NHL, obviously, but he's also a pretty big guy. How much is his size, being 6'4" and 200 whatever pounds, kind of present an additional challenge to trying to stop him?
Anytime you have a player with that skill, with that size, is very difficult to defend because they're not just a one-dimensional player. It's not that it's just skill or just speed. It's, skill, speed, and the size. So if you want to be strong on him, physical on him, he can roll off those checks. He protects it so well. So, if you get 2 guys attacking him, he's got the skill to find the open guy. So, it's very difficult. And to say that we're going to shut him down would be almost ridiculous to say. I think we just do our best to check him and limit his opportunities.
One of their key offensive players is a winger as opposed to a center. We sort of think of these traditional matchups like head-to-head, these 2 centers. Can you mark a guy as easily? Can you cover a guy as easily when he's a winger? Does it change maybe what you can or can't do with your centers?
No, I think with any player, it's mostly on not a position, not to say defenseman, check them, or forwards or center on center or anything like that. It's just a group mentality. And, obviously we start the series on the road, so we don't have last change. They'll dictate the matchups. I think it's really important that we got 5 guys that are on the ice where when he's out there that we are checking him tightly. And, he's very dangerous, and you spend too much time checking him. They've got a lot of other threats right through their lineup. So whether it's their first or their fourth line, they've got guys who have scored, and they've got a lot of goal scorers. I know they've got 8 20-goal scorers, and it's a difficult team to keep in check.
If it ends up being Draisaitl, say, eating up some of those minutes at even strength, is that, sawing that off, is that a win if it's Draisaitl and Rantanen? Or can you use these super high-octane offensive players that can also play that 2-way game? And is that okay if that's a saw-off with a guy like Leon?
Yeah, if it is, I don't know. In my opinion, Leon Draisaitl is the best player in the league this year, and to say you want Leon to be just even against the other team's best player, I don't think that would be. I don't think go into it saying, yeah, that's what I want. But it all depends on, what the lines are going to be. If we have less scoring with Leon and they've got their other best scorers with Rantanen, then you'd probably say yes. But I just think anytime you've got a player of Leon's caliber, the goal is never, I want it to be even.
The 4 teams that made it to the Final Four this year are all very experienced, right? Carolina's been knocking on the door. Florida's won. You guys, Dallas. Maybe if you could just give me an opinion on why it's so hard for a new team to crack into that group this year. None of them seem to make it.
The competition's very difficult, and I don't know. I think you need guys who've gone through it a lot, and I think that maybe the difference is, there's a lot of good quality teams, and you especially see it during the regular season on, it's very difficult to say who the best teams are. I think of us going through the playoffs and the experience this team has had and played so many playoff games that when the playoffs do happen, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress on everyone. And I think the more that you've gone through it, the more it helps you. I think the most important thing absolutely is skill. Having the best players is what's important. But now if you're talking about experience, now that just helps you even more during the grind of the playoffs.
So as a coach, I don't know how much you can let us in here. Because your team's so experienced and they've seen all the moments now, right, including Game 7 of a Cup final, are there things that you don't have to coach on anymore? Are there things that maybe if you had a team of lesser experience, you'd have to remind people of or coach people to do? Like, is this team easier to coach in that respect?
We've been together for a long time. Like, the team's been, the majority of the guys, the core of the guys have been with each other and played a lot of playoff games. And if you just think about this year with this group, we're approaching 100 games, and, I've talked about our forecheck and our breakouts and what we're supposed to be doing. And, it's just repetition, and it's not this time of the year. It's not about coaching. It's about execution, and the players know what's important. And, as coaches, we make little adjustments, but, it's about just getting the job done, and who's getting it done. It's the guys who are on the ice.
Will Ekholm be going on the road with your team?
I don't know that yet. We have to check with our staff.
For sure when you scout that Heiskanen will be probably playing against Connor and probably Harley if they keep the pair. As a coach, do you look at, okay, which defense pair do we want against their theoretical best line then? Because you don't really have a shutdown, like some teams have a shutdown defense pair right now with no Ekholm playing.
No, we kind of approach our line matching like, I don't know, that we feel confident with everybody, whether it's our defense pairs, whether it's our 4 forward lines. We just want our players, and we feel confident in them that they can just go out and play against anybody. And there are some that favor us a little bit if we had this checking line versus their top line, or speed versus speed, or whatever it is. But I think we just are, we've got the benefit of having a lot of good players, and those players can play in different situations against other players. So, I don't think it's that important that we're chasing matchups.
Kris, we saw against Vegas, you mentioned they were good off the rush. They were also a team that had most goals in the West amongst forwards 5-on-5, and you really limited them. Dallas is right below them. How much of your team's offense did you find in the second round contributed to the lack of offense from Vegas? Like, as good as you're playing defensively, how much does the fact that you're getting so much offense up and down the lineup, does that limit the opposition's offense?
Well, the more guys you have out there that can score goals, more that they have to be aware of them and not be cheating on offense. That last series we limited the goals against, but for our team, it was probably the lowest we've spent in the offensive zone. Usually we spend a lot more time in the offensive zone, grinding teams down, which helps us not having to defend. But it wasn't that wasn't the case. We did spend probably more time in the defensive zone or just less time in the offensive zone where we had to defend, and I thought we did a really good job of defending. What happens this next series, we'll see, but with their team, they've got so many players that can score that it's, to say that we're going to shut them down and hold them at check, it's a pretty tall order for us.
Chris, just here in the back. I just wonder if you can pinpoint, as a group of 6 defensemen, how you guys have been able to come together without Matthias Ekholm. I know you did it down the stretch, but it just seems like you guys, as a collective 6, have taken another stride here.
Well, going into the playoffs, we had a lot of uncertainties. The one, Jake Wallman was coming back from an injury and hadn't played very much. Klingberg wasn't playing very much at the end of the season with injury and the way other guys were playing. Stetcher also. So I think, just when they were inserted in the lineup and when they did come in, they played really well. And, why the recipe or what the reasons for it, I just think we've got a lot of good players, like I said, both forwards, defensemen, and they're able to play more when called upon. If we're very happy with our defense during the regular season, and we made the trade for Wallman, and we felt that would benefit our group and how much it was going to improve. But I think the biggest thing was, if we had injuries, who's going to step up? We felt like everyone was playing probably a good amount of minutes as they were during the regular season. But if you were to lose somebody, now can we ask more out of guys? And then that's where you're thinking about, okay, we need some more depth. And, the addition of Wallman was a great one by Stan. Klingberg obviously has been finding out that he's been a great addition for our group, playing the way he is. So I just think throughout the playoffs, we've had some uncertainties going into it, but I think a lot of maybe the answer was just a lot of guys were able to give us a little bit more, and they all delivered.
And to follow up that, do you feel like you have more depth this year than you maybe did last year? Do you feel that as a coach?
I don't know. I think we had a lot of depth because we made a lot of changes last year, and a lot of guys were able to come in and make changes or help our team. So I don't know. I think different situations. So it's pretty tough to say, but we definitely have a good amount of depth. Whether it was better than last year, I don't know. Definitely not less this year, but it'd be very similar.